Hi, it's Barry Joyce from Smart and welcome to this video. Now, in these series of videos, we're going through the categories for a CSCS test in 2025. Now, if you've been following the videos, whether it's on the mock tests or whether you've been following the categories, you may have come across that there are approximately 710, 11-ish questions on a CSCS test, which are broken down into categories. The categories that they're broken down are in front of you there, the 16 categories in total. Now, there is a link underneath this video to the rest of the categories. But for this one, we are going through site transport and lifting operations. And as you can see at the bottom here, there are 52 questions in this category. You are going to get 4 or 5 questions on your CSCS test. So the questions that the 52 questions we're going to go through now you are definitely going to be getting 4 or 5 of those questions. Hopefully, I can give you the correct answers along with some tips and tricks on how to answer the questions as well. So what I'm going to do is click OK. And I'm going to start here now. If you've been following the videos, whether it's the mocks or the categories, I always read the question out, or I get the computer to read them out. I strongly recommend that you read the questions out on your CSCS test because it will help you. You get headphones, you're going to be your own little zone. I read the question, I read the answer, then I'm hopefully going to select the correct answer for you. And as I said, try and give you some tips along the way. Now, the voiceover you hear on these will be the exact voiceovers you hear on your CSCS test. So let's get started with question number 1 of 52.
What are the 2 conditions for being able to operate plant on site? You must hold a British passport. You must hold a full UK driving licence. You must be trained and competent. You must be authorised. You must be over 21 years old.
Okay, so straight away, a good tip for these ones as well is whatever you think the answers are, drag them across. And drag your answers across, have a look at the ones that's got left. Now, I must stress on this one straightforward because whenever you see the words like trained, authorised, competent, it is always going to be the answer. Pick it.
Your supervisor asks you to drive a dumper truck, but you have not driven one before. What should you do? Watch other dumpers to see how they are operated. Tell your supervisor that you are not trained and so cannot operate it. Operate the dumper in an open area in case you make a mistake. Ask a trained driver how to operate it safely.
Yeah, nice and straightforward. If you're not trained, you're going to tell people you're not trained because for safety reasons.
Which of the following is a way of ensuring that a slinger or signaller is trained and competent? By trusting them when they say they are. By having them swear an affidavit. By asking for evidence to be produced. By making a handshake agreement.
So whenever vehicles are reversing on site in particular, you have to have a vehicle marshaller or a vehicle signaller who must be trained, authorised and competent. And by doing that as well, they must be assessed and produce evidence before they actually give any signals.
A truck has to tip materials into a trench. Who should give signals to the truck driver? Someone who knows the signals. Only the person who is trained and appointed for the job. Someone who is standing in the trench. Any person who is wearing a high-vis coat.
Again, there we go. Look, trained, authorised, competence not in there, but it is the answer, so it's got to be trained and appointed for the job.
When signallers are used, who should they be in contact with at all times? The site manager, the machine operator, their supervisor, pedestrians.
Of course, it's got to be the machine operator.
Who is the best person to control the movement of vehicles on site? The first aider, a vehicle marshaller, the site manager. The company director.
It's got to be the vehicle marshaller.
Where vehicles tip materials into excavations, what could be used as a safety precaution? Extra speakers. stop blocks, flashing lights, a siren.
Okay, so with these ones, again, it's about understanding the jargon and the language that's used in construction. So excavations is just basically a hole, confined space, a hole. So if vehicles are tipping into a big hole, you're going to need stop blocks to stop them, prevent them going into the hole.
Which action will help to keep signallers safe? Which action will help to keep signallers safe? Provide gloves for hand signals. Provide body cameras to capture any incidents. Provide high-vis clothing so they are clearly visible. Provide yearly eye tests to confirm they have good vision.
Okay, they must make themselves clearly visible by wearing high-vis clothing. Also, they must be in contact with the driver of the vehicle at all times.
When can a mobile plant operator let people ride in or on the machine? Only if it is designed to carry passengers and has a designated seat. Anytime, as long as the cab door is shut. Only if they have a long way to walk. Anytime, as long as the site speed limit is not exceeded.
Okay, any answers that you see designated, again, pick that, because designated, it's there for a reason, so it's going to be the answer.
Workers are on foot close to moving plant. Which one of the following is true? The workers should stay within the designated pedestrian routes. The workers will be safe if they are in a group. The operator will see the workers because they have mirrors and CCTV. High-vis clothing will keep the workers safe if the plant is not reversing.
Okay, so firstly, let's have a look at the question, because with this being site transport, they will refer to the vehicles as different things, such as site transport, such as vehicles. Sometimes they might refer them to moving plant, or dumper truck, or crane. They're all the same, it's just known as moving plant. So moving vehicles. Now look at the answers. Designated is in there. It's there for a reason. Pick it.
You are walking on site and a large mobile crane reverses across your path. What should you do? Wait or find another way around the crane. Start to run so that you can pass behind the reversing crane. Help the driver to reverse. Pass close to the front of the crane.
Again, we are going to wait. Now, the biggest cause of death on site is falling from height, which you may have seen in another category. One of the common causes of death is actually being hit by mobile plant. So you will never ever, this is why we have designated, anything that's designated, we have designated paths for pedestrians and also for vehicles, and likewise you wouldn't cross on each other's path because it is one of the most common causes of death on site.
The risk of a materials handling vehicle, telehandler, overturning is increased when raising loads whilst stationary, reversing into a loading bay, lifting loads on even ground, driving at excessive speeds around corners.
Okay, uneven ground would have been the answer there, but looking at this, driving at excessive speeds around corners is one way to, which is one way why overturning is increased.
You see a lorry parking and it has a flat tyre. Why should you tell the driver? The driver will need to travel at a much slower speed. It could be unsafe to drive the lorry. The lorry can only carry small loads. More fuel will be used by the lorry.
Yeah, of course, it's going to be unsafe, so you need to notify the driver.
In an area where there may be pedestrians, what is the most effective and safe approach if mobile plant needs to be reversed? Reverse lights on the back of the plant. A vehicle marshaller. A barrier around the plant. A reversing camera.
Vehicle marshaller.
When is site transport allowed to drive along a pedestrian route? Only if necessary and if all pedestrians are excluded. During meal breaks. Only if the vehicle has a flashing yellow light. If it is the shortest route.
Okay, so only if necessary and pedestrians are excluded, i.e. not allowed in that area.
The quickest way to your work area is through a contractor's vehicle compound. Which way should you go? Straight through the compound if no one is looking. Around the compound every time. Around the compound if vehicles are moving. Straight through the compound if no vehicles appear to be moving.
Again, safety was going to tell us around the compound every time.
Which signal is being shown in this image? Danger, emergency stop, move backwards, turn right or left, move forwards.
Yeah, not the greatest of images, but it is danger, emergency stop.
You need to walk past a 360-degree mobile crane. The crane is operating near a wall. What is the main danger? Your hearing could be damaged by high noise levels from the crane. You could get whole-body vibration from the crane. You could be crushed if you walk between the crane and the wall. The crane could crash into the wall.
Okay, so an interesting one here again. Not as straightforward as you may think. But what is the main danger? Yes, it could be pretty much all of them, to be fair. But the main danger is you being crushed between the wall and the crane.
Which action should a worker take if they see mobile plant using a route intended only for pedestrians? Just be careful in that area. Have a word with the operator at the end of the day. Report this to their supervisor. Nothing. The driver will know what they are doing.
Okay, so it's not about going just telling tales on people and, trying to get people in trouble, because you need to report this to your supervisor for safety reasons to prevent them from happening again or from them occurring again.
Why should you not walk behind a lorry when it is reversing? The driver is unlikely to know you are there. You will need to run, not walk, to get past it in time. Most lorries are not fitted with mirrors. Most lorry drivers aren't very good at reversing.
Yeah, okay then. It's got to be that one, of course, but this is why you need a vehicle marshaller.
Which of the following is bad practice when organising site transport? One-way systems for vehicles. Limiting the speed of vehicles on site. Barriers to keep pedestrians away from mobile plant and vehicles. Pedestrians and mobile plant using the same routes.
Okay, so bad practice. So you would implement a one-way system. You would limit speed limits. You would have barriers to keep pedestrians away from mobile plant. Pedestrians and mobile plant would not use the same route. So that is the answer for bad practice. So it's D.
Loading and storage areas should be located where? Close to the welfare facilities. Away from the main construction worksite, outside the site boundary area, away from pedestrian-only areas and main pedestrian routes.
Okay, so loading and storage bays, so outside the boundary, away from the main. Right, so it's got to be away from pedestrian-only areas and main pedestrian routes.
When you walk across the site, what is the best way to avoid an accident with mobile plant? Ride on the plant. Get the attention of the driver before you get too close. Keep to the designated pedestrian routes. Wear high-vis clothing.
Okay, so designated routes, always the answer. There for a reason.
When is a site vehicle most likely to injure pedestrians? When it is reversing, as it is lifting materials onto scaffolds, while tipping into an excavation, while digging out footings.
Okay, and it is when they are reversing.
You think a load is about to fall from a moving forklift truck. What should you do? Sound the nearest fire alarm bell. Run alongside the machine and try to hold on to the load. Run and tell your supervisor. Keep clear, but try to warn the driver and others in the area.
Yeah, of course, you're going to keep clear and trying to warn people.
When choosing vehicle routes around a site, what is the main factor that should be considered? Is the driver experienced enough to drive the route? The medical history of the driver? The width of the route? Could the ground conditions cause a vehicle to overturn?
So the main factor, yeah, it's got to be driving conditions to cause the vehicle to overturn. Yep, so it's D.
Where risk of overturning is significant, what should vehicles be fitted with? Heavy-duty graded tyres. Rollover protective structures. ROPS. Extra strength brakes. A winch and pulley system.
Yeah, so it's ROPS.
To reduce the risk of overturning, how should vehicles be loaded? Make sure the load is tied securely to the vehicle. Ensure the content of the load weighs less than 1 ton. Make sure the vehicle is loaded to the maximum allowance. Ensure the load is evenly distributed in the body of the vehicle.
Yes, so the common sense one here would tell me you would ensure that it is evenly distributed on the vehicle, so D.
How should your employer provide you with information about site traffic rules? During the site induction, use a Health and Safety Executive HSE inspector. Ask other workers on site to tell you. Place a note on the site notice board.
Okay, so you would get your information through site induction and notice board, but they should give you all of this information during the site induction. So whenever you see site induction, it's always going to be the answer. So site induction is the answer. But you do get other information from notice boards as well.
What should you do if you see a dumper being driven too fast? Nothing, as dumpers are allowed to speed. Try to catch the dumper and speak to the driver. Report it to the police. Keep out of its way and report it.
Yeah, straightforward.
What is needed before supervising any lift using a crane? Nothing. The crane driver will tell you what to do. A mobile phone to talk to the crane driver. Full training and being assessed as competent. Written instructions from the crane hire company.
Assessed as competent and full training. Always the answer.
What is the main hazard associated with the movement of plant and machinery around site? Drivers getting motion sickness from the movement of the machine. Pedestrians walking too close to moving machinery and being crushed. Members of the public being poisoned by the exhaust fumes. Existing building collapse from vibrations of the moving machinery.
The main hazard, so a hazard has the potential to cause harm, so it's got to be pedestrians walking too close.
A forklift truck is blocking the route you need to take on site. It is lifting materials onto a scaffold. What should you do? Start to run so that you are not under the load for very long. Catch the driver's attention and then walk under the raised load. Wait or take another route, but never walk under a raised load. Only walk under the raised load if you are wearing a safety helmet.
Of course, you're never going to walk underneath the raised road.
What is the meaning of this sign? No pedestrian access. Pedestrian walkway only. Traffic approaching from each direction. Go slow.
red and white circle with a line, white background, pictogram in the middle, prohibition notice, so not to do, so no pedestrian access.
Which of the following is a recognised control measure when reversing a vehicle? Turning on all the vehicle lights. Turning the sight radio off. Using a vehicle marshal. Standing on the back to direct it.
Okay, so it's going to be vehicle marshalling it, but control measures are these things that's put in place, mechanisms put in place to prevent certain things from happening. So when vehicles are reversing, you need to have a vehicle marshaller to control the measures.
A crane has to do a difficult lift. The signaller asks you to help, but you are not trained in plant signals. What should you do? Politely refuse and explain you don't know how to signal. Ask the signaller to show you what signals to use. Only help if the signaller really can't manage alone. Start giving signals to the crane driver.
Okay, yeah, you're going to politely refuse and explain you don't know how to do the signals. Again, remember, signallers must be trained, authorised and competent.
Under what circumstance should a driver stop their vehicle immediately? If the flashing beacon has stopped working. If the vehicle is low on fuel. If they lose sight of their vehicle marshal. If they are operating in a one-way system.
Yeah, lose sight of the vehicle marshal. Remember, vehicle marshal should be in contact with the driver at all times.
How would a well-organised site keep pedestrians away from traffic routes? The traffic routes will be shown on the Health and Safety Law poster. There will be barriers between traffic and pedestrian routes. The site manager will direct all pedestrians away from traffic routes. There is no need to keep traffic and pedestrians apart.
Okay, so good housekeeping, well-organised sites. There will be barriers between traffic and pedestrians. Remember, separate traffic and pedestrian routes only.
A mobile crane is lifting a load, but the load is about to hit something. What should you do? Do nothing and assume that everything is under control. Go and tell your supervisor. Go and tell the crane driver. Try and warn the person supervising or signalling the lift.
Okay, so again, you're going to try and warn the vehicle marshaller or signaller who is controlling the lift.
To prevent overturning, when should rear tipping lorries not be used for tipping operations? When on firm, level ground. During redistribution of the load. On uneven or sloping ground. When a competent signaller is supervising.
Yeah, of course, on uneven ground.
When moving plant or machinery around site, what should the operator look out for? Only driving with limited fuel. Speed signs and speed humps. Driving with the lights on during the day. Driving with the handbrake on.
So when vehicle plants moving, what should they look out for? So they've got to be speed signs and speed bumps. Yep.
Identify one of the most common types of accident involving site dumpers. Vehicles overturning. Drivers not concentrating. Issues with engines. Inexperienced drivers.
Okay, so one of the most common ones is vehicles overturning. So remember, vehicles overturn by going round corners with excessive speed, not evenly distributing the weight out, and that's why we fit them with the ROPs to balance the vehicles.
If there are blind spots while using plant but work needs to continue, what actions should be taken? Request the plant be fitted with CCTV cameras. Use a vehicle marshal for this type of work. Work with a slinger. Use the existing mirrors on the plant.
You're going to use a vehicle marshaller.
An excavator has just stopped work. Liquid is dripping and forming a small pool under the back of the machine. What could this mean? Someone put too much diesel into the machine before it started work. The machine has a leak and could be unsafe. It is normal for fluids to vent after the machine stops. The machine is hot, so the diesel has expanded and overflowed.
Okay, so you excavate your digger, so the machine potentially could have a leak and it will potentially be unsafe.
In which one of the following situations is it safer for a worker to speak to someone operating mobile plant? The worker is wearing PPE and the plant is moving slowly. The worker is wearing high-vis and the plant is moving slowly. The operator can hear the worker and it is daytime. The operator knows the worker is there and the plant has stopped operating.
Okay, the safest way, of course, the operator knows the worker's there and the plant is stopped, so the vehicle must be stopped.
Which one of the following describes the role of a vehicle marshaller? Provide training on how to drive manual plant. Manage incident response documentation. Support safe vehicle movements on site. Control the movement of cranes on site.
Okay, so you're going to support the safe vehicle movements on site, in particular reversing.
To reduce the risk of overturning and accidents when not in use, how should earth-moving vehicles be parked? With their buckets and blades facing the same way. With the buckets and blades facing opposite directions. With their buckets and blades raised in the air. With their buckets and blades lowered to the ground.
Okay, so of course for safety they're going to be lowered into the ground.
What is the most important information a vehicle marshaller should know before directing a vehicle? How to signal vehicles and any relevant safety procedures. The value of the materials as they could be stolen. The type of materials being delivered to the site. The name and address of the driver for security reasons.
Yeah, of course it is. It's A.
Which of the following signs means no pedestrian access?
Okay, so they're caution, that's a prohibition, so it's got to be that one.
Identify one of the most common causes of death and injury on a construction site. Getting electrocuted by power tools. Getting asthma from fumes. Being struck by mobile plant. Sunburn from being outside.
Okay, so I mentioned it earlier, didn't I? So the main cause of death, remember it's reading the question. The main cause of death is falling from height. One of the most common causes is being struck by mobile plant.
Why should engines be turned off before leaving a site vehicle? Select 2 answers. Leaving the engine running is a waste of fuel and is therefore a waste of construction budget. Construction machines are not designed to be constantly left running. The sound of the engine may give other workers a headache if left on for too long. Drivers may accidentally operate levers when climbing into or out of the vehicle. Members of the public are likely to jump into the vehicle and steal it.
Okay, so let's look at this logically then. We need to drag our 2 answers across. So remember, in one of the categories I did talk about, it's all about saving energy, saving costs, saving fuel, all of that type of thing. So engines to be turned off, engines left running is a waste of fuel and budget. I think you'd all agree with that. Construction machines are not designed to be constantly left running. Nope. The sound of the engine may give other workers a headache. No. Drivers may accidentally operate levers when climbing in and out. Possibly. I'm just going to drag that across. Members of the public are likely to jump into the vehicle and steal it. Well, members of the public can probably not be allowed on site because most of them are all secure. So I'm going to go with these 2 here. So drivers accidentally operate the levers and engines running is a waste of fuel.
What should you do if you need to walk past someone operating a mobile crane? Run to get past the crane quickly. Try to catch the attention of the crane operator. Take another route so that you stay clear of the crane. Guess what the crane operator will do next and squeeze past.
Yeah, we've had about 4 or 5, maybe a few more of these similar questions. So you're always going to take another route and stay clear of any type of moving plant. Okay, site transport, lifting operations, done. 52 questions, you're getting 4 or 5 of those ones that you've just seen. It is a pretty much straightforward category, although it is a big category, but just think safety, designated areas, always going to be the answer. Separating pedestrians from vehicle routes, just remember the bit of the jargon, so they could refer them to as moving plant, excavators, cranes, dumpers. They're pretty much all the same. They are the vehicles. So that's it on this category. Hope you got a little bit out of it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.